are delighted to welcome Michael and Jill back to Baltimore. So you grew up here.
I did, if you'll accept the idea that I've grown up. I did grow up here. Yeah, born and bred through high school. It was a very different city when I grew up. I'm very old. But it's an amazing city now. I hear they have a baseball team that's doing very well. They do.
Anybody know the score? 5-1, we're ahead? Oh, life is good, life is good. The Yankees getting beat?
I think they are.
Good. So life is better. This is great. So you, one of your most well-known film roles is in Diner with Barry Levinson. You were part of that crowd?
Well, no, I wasn't part of that crowd. Actually, my brother, who's 4 years older than me, did know all those people. He wasn't in the Diner crowd so much, but he knew those people. But I didn't know Barry at all. And I was, a struggling actor in New York back in those days. And I got an audition, and I said, is there a script? And he said, well, there's not a script right now, but you just go in and meet this guy, meet this director. And I went in and met Barry, and I said, so what's the film about? And he said, well, it's about a diner in Northwest Baltimore in the 50s. And I said, no.
And you were hired on the spot.
I got the part like that.
The perfect Baltimorese accent.
Yeah, when I went to drama school, I got rid of the accent. But if you wake me up in the middle of the night, it's right there. I sound exactly like Senator Mikulski when you went.
And so now that you're back in town for a day or two, you get to see some family then?
Yes, to see some family and to do this and to see this fantastic event right here. Yeah, it's fun. It's fun. It's fun to be back.
This is the book. How many of you have read this book by any chance? Good. You are all in for a huge treat. This is a terrific, terrific read, Mike. It really is. I really enjoyed it a lot. We had a chance to talk on the radio earlier this week. You've acted in film, you've acted on television, you've acted on stage. I wonder if the impulse for understanding a character as an actor helps inform your understanding of the characters that you're inventing.
It is a part of it. It's the thing about acting and writing that's the closest, which is character. I think when I'm acting, I know that if I can find out the way this guy sounds, the way that words come out of his mouth, then I'm well on my way. And all my previous writing was nonfiction, and I was writing about my family, and I was writing about my friends, and I know what their sound was. When I started to write this book, the character of Herbie, who's the leading character of the book, I kind of figured, well, Herbie's kind of like me, He turned out not to be so much like me, but that's where I started, and I had this. The book grew out of real life. Jill had a recurrence of her breast cancer. Which was terrifying. It worked out, obviously, very well, and she's doing fine. But at the time, the word recurrence was terrifying. And I had this recurring loop in my mind that she was in the hospital and she was dying. And at 2 in the morning, I would go out and try to find a bar while she was sleeping. So I just had this image of this guy walking down the streets of New York at 2 in the morning looking for a bar. That's as far as I got. And finally, I thought, well, this is what I have to write about. And I named him Herbie Aaron, and he's walking down the street at 2 in the morning. And thank you. And it was bitter cold, and he sees one snowflake come by his head, and he says to the snowflake, "It's too cold to snow." As if not only would the snowflake hear him, but the snowflake would do something about it. And I was amused by this. I thought, oh, I like this guy. He's mad, and he says what he wants to say. He doesn't edit himself at all. And I was dying to see what he would say next. And that, following what Herbie said next, got me through the whole book.
Roughly stated, the plot concerns Herbie, who is an actor, his wife, Annie, who is an actor, based, as you've said, roughly on you and Jill. And Annie dies. Annie dies early in the book, the 4th chapter.
Chapter 4.
Yeah. And this is about the journey that Herbie and his family take once Annie is gone. There's several things about this that are just terrific. One of them is this white-hot love between Herbie and Annie, this incredible bond, this incredible relationship. How long have you guys been married in real life?
39 years. Yeah. I'm going strong.
So, actually, Mike and I talked about this on the air the other day, but he was showing you chapters as he was finishing them. How did you feel when you read the chapter in which the love of Herbie's life dies?
Well, he was writing something initially and not talking about it, which was really unusual because he usually tells me everything and wants me to read everything. And I didn't know what was going on. And then at a certain point he said, sit down, I want to talk to you. And I thought, uh-oh, because he never says sit down, he just talks to me, you know. You know what I mean? And he said, you know, I'm writing a novel, I think, about a man like me and a woman like you, and she dies in chapter 4. And I said, oh, that's interesting. And then I started to read them. I read the first 4 chapters, and I really fell in love with Herbie. I fell in love with Annie, who is just fantastic. I thought, wow, if she's based on me, I'm so flattered. And then their relationship was so moving to me. And so I forgot to worry that when the book came out, everybody would think I was dead. But you'll notice that I'm right up here on the platform saying hello in case anybody thinks I am.
Looks like that scene from Monty Python, you know, I'm not dead. Yes, you are, shut up. Well, we are delighted that you're feeling well and that you're able to join us.
But I think Mike wrote something that was his greatest fear, and he used it as the jumping off point for this novel, and that's what you're supposed to be able to do if you're a novelist, so...
In addition to Herbie and Annie, there are a number of other terrific characters. One of the things I love about this book is virtually all of the characters are very sympathetic. You like every one of them. I mean, there's just something to love about each person in the book. So you're interested to find out what happens to them. But are the other characters also based loosely or otherwise on folks in your circle, folks you know?
Not well. In a way, it's very interesting to write a novel because you can do anything you want. The character of the daughter, Herbie and Annie's daughter, Candy, I very meticulously chose not to base it on our daughter. I didn't think that was fair, you know. And we have a friend, a dear friend of ours, who is a fantastic character, and I visually based it on her. And she's quite a crazy and wonderful figure, the daughter character. There's a character of Bob, who is this insane actor, who is an old friend of Herbie's and Annie's. He doesn't really exist in life, but physically I had somebody in mind. As an actor that I know that I saw him through the thing. So you play, you know, you bring, you know, the what this guy looks like and what this guy sounds like together. And Herbie, the voice of Herbie is not my voice. It really, it wasn't until after I finished the book that I realized a great deal of the way Herbie talks is from an actor that I worked with years ago, an actor who's now dead, Sam Levine, who was a famous, wonderful actor. And Sam Levine was the toughest guy in town. And he talked tough, and he would talk straight. And a great deal of Herbie's voice comes from Sam, and I didn't even know that until it came to me afterward.
So, Jill, another thing that I would imagine was a little dicey for you to deal with is that after Annie dies, a good bit of this story is how Herbie is going to pick up from there, including an infatuation with a young actress who he begins to have a relationship as a sort of a mentor and an advisor. For those of us of a certain age who've been married, I've been married 26 years, for example, my wife and I do talk about this every so often. We muse about, what will happen if you go first. You'll find somebody. Do you have those conversations, and do those conversations play out in any way the way the fictional book did?
Well, in this case, in this book, Annie actually sets Herbie up to mentor this young woman named Olive, who's this beautiful young aspiring actress. Annie sets Herbie up to mentor her because she's worried about him. She doesn't think he'll make it, that he'll survive, after she's gone. And he meets Olive in a bar, and he's enchanted with her. And Annie says, "I want to meet this girl," and she sets up this relationship, which is probably more than I would ever do. I'm very impressed with her.
Oh, honey.
But yeah, it gave me pause because the relationship with Olive is a very sexy, fun relationship, and there were I had moments with it. But then a very good friend of mine said that she thought that I was both characters, that I was the inspiration for Annie because Annie is who I was, and that Olive is who I am becoming. And I thought, that works for me. Yeah.
Well, Annie, of course, she does die in the 4th chapter, but her spirit hovers over every page of the book. She is an inspiration to Olive, to you, or to Herbie, sorry, to the family. Let me just be brazen about this. Is Jill an inspiration to you? Does Jill serve as a muse to you in the right? And by the way, if the answer is no, our escape plan is stage right. Okay.
Jill who? Oh no. Yes, Jill is most assuredly my muse and my inspiration and my lodestar. Is that the right word? The thing that I attach to so as I can get through the day. She is the muse. She has been the muse before I was a writer. Jill is a muse for a lot of people. She has that quality. People talk to her and then they change their life in some way. She has that quality.
And certainly that's what happens with Annie, that's for sure. Do you write, Jill? Do you have the bug the way Mike does?
I don't really. We write together a little bit because we do a lot of speaking, public speaking, have for many years, and we write our talks together. So we've done that, but anytime we've actually tried to sit down and write something together, it's been kind of disastrous because he has the bug, as you say. I mean, he's always wanted to write. He's been writing something, for forever before he was published. And I don't. I mean, I love to write emails, but it's not my thing. I actually think I'm more of a visual person than a word person, really. So I think Mike is fascinated with words, and he loves moving words around. And
the biggest difference, we can't write together. It's impossible. The biggest difference is Jill wants to finish it. If she's going to write
goal-oriented,
if she's going to write a chapter, say in a book, she will work until that chapter's done. I don't like to finish it at all. I like to get something down. I like to work. I make a big circle, and then the next day the circle gets a little smaller, and then the next day the circle gets, and I like to rewrite. I like to get it down, right or wrong, and then move things around for the next 6 years. So it's not an easy.
And you're an agent's nightmare too.
Totally.
So you don't write together, but you certainly work together.
We work together almost daily. Yeah, we work together a lot.
Well, I say that we've been acting partners for a long time, ever since L.A. Law. Before that we were acting separately, but after L.A. Law we tended to work together, although we've still done separate things. But I said, when Mike really decided that he was a writer instead of an actor, first of all, I have to drag him, kicking and screaming, to do pieces of acting with me. But by this sort of segue from being an actor to a writer has meant that I had to segue from having an acting partner to being a muse. So we're still in partnership, really. It's just, and we just did a play together, so it's not over, the acting stuff, but his heart is way way more into the writing, into the literary world. And it's fun for me because, the acting world can get kind of narrow. And so I now have a chance to be in the literary community a little bit more, and that's fabulous.
One of the pet peeves that Herbie has is that he's recognized by most people as that guy on TV from that show. That show, in your case, is L.A. Law. How is the dynamic of your great notoriety from that role? And you guys were both terrific in those roles.
Thanks.
And that was a great show. I mean, in so many ways. How's that dynamic continuing to play out? Because we were just over in the reception area for the presenters, and I saw two people say, "Oh, you're the guy from L.A. Law." I mean, this is people continue to do this. What's that mean to you?
And it went off the air in 1994. So
Yeah. I think it's fine. I think it's great. People like the show. People are very sweet. It's not like being a movie star. We're like their friends. They know us. We were in their living room week after week after week. And so when people come over, they're very nice. So it's fine. And it's minimal. It's not like, we walk through and everybody recognizes. It's just one person here, one person there. It's fine.
But do you have any impulse at all, even if you are able to suppress it, to say, well, I've done other things besides LA Law?
No. You never tell people what you want them to think. Let them think whatever they want to think.
yeah, in the old days when somebody would say, "I know you from somewhere. Where is it?" And then and we would say, I would say, "Well, I'm an actor," and they would say, "What have you done?" And then I'd start to list my credits. Say, "Oh, I didn't see that. I didn't see that. No, I never watched television. I didn't see that. Ooh, that's a bad way to go."
In high school, I did this play in Baltimore. No, I didn't see that. Well,
I had someone once say, "Haven't I seen you on television?" I said, "Well, you might have." She said, "You look better on television than you do right now." She actually said it. This is the lady at the Rite Aid. I thought,
we often do. We often read short stories with Isaiah Sheffer from Selected Shorts, and that's also on the radio on NPR. And so when Isaiah appears live, he always opens the show. He said, "My wife." It often comes and was sitting next to a woman, and when I came out on stage to begin the show, she leaned over to her friend and said, "Oh, that's what he looks like."
Well, let me ask you to read a section.
Sure.
Do you have a copy, or do you need this one?
I need that one.
This, and fill in the blanks here for me if I'm getting it right, but this, Annie has passed away, and one of the things that Herbie decides to do is to take up golf, or to take some golf lessons and get a little more serious about golf. And this is...
Yeah.
Sorry, let me get rid of all this junk.
Chapter 8. I have to
Chapter
find
8.
it here, yeah. Oh, yeah, here, I turned right to it. Isn't that amazing? All right. I won't read the whole chapter, but I'll give you an idea. So this is Chapter 8. Annie has passed away in Chapter 4. Herbie is lost. He doesn't want to see any of his friends. He doesn't want anybody to see him. He doesn't know who he is. He doesn't know if he exists without Annie. And he gets this brainstorm. He says, what I'm going to do, I'm going to take these golf clubs that have been sitting for 20 years in my basement. I'm going to rent a car and drive down to Myrtle Beach. And I'm going to play golf all day. And then I'll get drunk and go to sleep. And that'll get me through these next days. I don't think I have to explain too much because we talked about Olive, who's the beautiful young bartender, aspiring actress that Herbie is coaching through an audition right now, her first audition.
Do you need to set up Jeffrey?
And Jeffrey is their agent, was Annie's and Herbie's agent for 40 years. And Annie, days before she died, set Olive up with Jeffrey so that he would be her agent. Annie is really the moving spirit behind this whole thing. Okay, so it's the day that he arrives. Chapter 8. Herbie hits Myrtle Beach at the apex of a tripartite conversion. Spring break, St. Patrick's Day, and the annual shag dancing competition. All happening together, all happening today. This is why you should check with a travel agent, he mutters as he inches his car through legions of half-naked, drunken college students with green plastic shamrocks on their heads. There go the bars, he says out loud. Fucking amateur hour. He makes his way to the hotel, which is really more like a golf resort, with 3 separate courses, all named for celebrity golfers. A golf school, restaurants, stand up. And it's called St. Andrews, which gives you an idea of how pretentious it is. He drives up to the ornate reception area, a third-rate version of a Vegas hotel. You got that? Sorry. Thank you. I think that's good. A third-rate version of a Vegas hotel, and there's a place to drop off his golf bag so they can take it down to the golf area, and he won't have to put it in his room. They frown on golf clubs in the room. He pops his trunk, and an eager young fella takes the bag out of the trunk. He has a bit of a sneer in his face as he lifts Herbie's canvas golf bag with its motley set of clubs and sets it on a rack next to a dozen hefty leather bags with gleaming matched irons and fluffily head-covered woods. They're collectibles, he tells the kid. Be careful, they're worth a fortune. Yes, sir, polish them up for you? No, they look exactly the way they're supposed to look. After he checks in, he follows another tanned young fellow through endless corridors to his golf package suite. He tips the kid, and as he lets himself out, the click of the closing door hits Herbie like a brick. How many fucking hotels, he thinks, on location in some half-ass city, shooting some dreary fucking film, away from Annie, away from my life. The only thing to do on location was to find someone to have sex with as soon as possible. Some actress, or more probably her stand-in. Someone who likes to drink, preferably. It's not adultery on location, as the old saying goes. Annie had her flings too. Not as many, just 3. That cameraman in Virginia and 2 actors. But when she had them, they were doozies, with feelings and emotions. Unlike Herbie, who would have done it with a goldfish if that's who was around. They told each other all about their affairs one afternoon in a course they were taking in Northern California, some New Age communication course, and they spilled everything, secrets they thought they would take to the grave. Annie only had her 3, but Herbie's list went on and on. Women they had both worked with, a friend of Annie's, some hooker in Vegas. His confession went on until the evening. In the end, it was Herbie, of course, who was devastated. It took him months to get over it. But finally, they both realized they felt better being clean with each other, so they decided to keep it that way. After that, the only fucking around they did was together. Herbie unpacks and puts on his golf clothes, which remarkably resembled the clothes he was driving in, tan pants, a white polo shirt, and a black cashmere sweater with the sleeves rolled up. He has his first golf lesson in half an hour. Good, he thinks, it'll take my mind off. He meets the golf teacher outside the pro shop. Tall, tan, sun-bleached blonde hair, a little older than the car valet and the bellboy, but not much. Herbie notes how they all have blonde hairs on their tanned, ropey arms. Well, says the boy, looking at his clipboard, how about we get right down to it, Mr. Aaron? Ready to hit a few golf balls for me? Actually, Dan, I'd rather... that's Don. He holds out his hand. Don Merritt, Mr. Aaron. He shakes Herbie's hand forcefully, as if to make him remember the name. Mr. what? He checks his clipboard again. You are Mr. Herbert Aaron, are you not? Aaron. Aaron. You never heard that name before? I certainly have. It's in the Bible. Aaron was the brother of Moses. Are you a Mormon? No, I'm not. Aaron is pronounced Aaron. I'm sorry, Mr. Aaron. How about if I call you Herbert or Herb? Herbie nods vaguely. He hates this kid. Look, here's what I want to do. First, I want to sit down with you at the bar and explain exactly what I'm looking for here. Otherwise, we're going to waste a lot of time, okay? The bar? Don's voice is up an octave now. No, I don't think we can do that, Mr. Aaron. Oh, sorry. But that's just the way we say this name down here. I'll get it. He laughs again, manfully. No, we can't go to the bar. My boss would not look kindly on that. No, he wouldn't. Here's the deal, Dan. I don't want your standard golf lesson. I have had many, many golf lessons, and believe me, they're worthless. For me, I mean. For everybody else, I'm sure they're fine. So what I want to do is sit down with you. It can be at the bar or not at the bar, and tell you what I'm looking for here, okay? Don takes a moment, surveying the driving range, like he's looking for spiritual help. And then he looks at Herbie and purses his lips. All right? Tell me, I want you to help me work on my swing. My swing, not your swing, without all the mishigas. The what? Herbie sighs a big one. Mishigas, it's a Yiddish word. It means like a lot of nonsense or the whole rigmarole, you know? Sir, Don's all fluffed up now, like a gamecock. The 9 secrets to power golf is not nonsense. He declares this fervently. It is not a rigmarole or a michigas. It is science, sir. Pure, tested, and proven science. And it has helped many, many golfers to a more successful and pleasurable golf game. Look, the 9 Secrets of Power Golf was created by Mr. Mac McFeely, who is without a doubt the finest teacher for the higher handicapped golfer, I think, in these United States. Look, Don, goddammit. Then he hangs his head like a puppy dog. He starts walking around in a big circle, head still down, his ears all red. Herbie muses on how blonde people's ears turn red when they get mad. I'm sorry, sir, said Don finally. I'm getting a little sore here. Don, my son, you have to understand something. I can't remember 9 secrets to anything. I can't remember 2. I don't want secrets. All I want to do is hit the fucking ball. The lesson proceeds downhill from there. Don, in an effort to change the air between them, suggests that he videotape Herbie as he hits the ball. This is not a good idea. Herbie launches into a diatribe about how he never watches himself on film. That is the very death of his creative process. It makes him self-conscious and therefore unable to be his free and instinctual self. Don looks like he's in a nightmare, unable to understand a word of what he's hearing. Herbie could be speaking Farsi for all he knows. The lesson ends in the pro shop with Herbie trying to get back the money he paid for the other 8 secrets to power golf that he's never going to learn. Finally, he and the head pro negotiate a deal for half, and neither of them feel very good about it. Still steaming, he goes to his room, showers, and puts on his drinking clothes, which are very similar to his golf clothes. And then he goes to the bar and finds his spot, separate, of course, from all human contact. The bar has one of those 19th hole motifs, and he's in no mood for it. A bar should look like a fucking bar, he says to the approaching bartender. After he downs his double mojito, for some reason he's decided that's the appropriate drink. He surveys the room and sees in a dark corner Don, the golf teacher, pouring his heart out to a preppy-looking young woman. He gets another drink and carries it across the room. If we had started here, like I said, he says to the miserable young man, none of this would have ever happened. The girl instinctually moves her chair back, preparing for a fast getaway. This is a good life lesson for you. When a drunk suggests you go to the bar first, listen to him. He knows of what he speaks.
This book is very funny.
Thank you.
Very funny. Herbie is very funny. Annie is terrific. I mean, if I ever have a character based on me in a book and it's as cool as these are, this is great. I wonder, did you learn anything? You read the book as it was, in its various iterations, various drafts, and you've, now been living with it for a while. Did you learn anything about Mike from reading the book?
What I love is that, because he's an actor, he became each one of these people. And I actually watched him being them. Usually when I was trying to have a conversation with him, I could tell that he was being somebody else because I watched him really embody a lot of these characters. There's a fabulous, amazing lesbian golf teacher that is just an incredible character. I saw him being Billy for a while. I think I learned a lot about him as an actor because he really found all these people because he was these people and loved them. And I was astonished by it. I'm pretty amazed by the whole thing. I mean, by every book he's written, the memoirs, but this one has been the most amazing. That he could create these people in his head and become them and put them on the page is an astonishing feat to me, and I don't understand how you do it.
Yeah, it can be very freeing and but also intimidating to figure out what their next move is. I've talked to writers who tell me that they write out, before they write the book, they write out little biographies of each character. I mean, they plot out things and they do plot points on, Excel spreadsheets and all that kind of stuff. Is that part of your process?
No, for me it was the voice. Once I got the voice, once I heard the way he or she talks, I was home.
But Mike has always had a voice thing. I mean, I fell in love with him because of his voice, really. The way his sound was so incredible to me right off the bat. But he used to do a lot of voiceovers. And he also used to dub Italian movies, and he dubbed all of Lena Wertmüller's movies and a lot of Ingmar Bergman movies.
A terrible job.
And it's a terrible job, and dubbing is ridiculous. But Lena Wertmüller, I don't know if any of you remember who she was. She so fell in love with the way he dubbed Giancarlo Giannini in Swept Away and Seven Beauties that she hired him to come to Italy and be the dialogue coach on her one and only movie in English. And that's because of his voice. I mean, she was so taken with his voice.
When she finally met me, she couldn't stand me, but yeah. She liked my voice.
But I think his voice is a very major, asset of his, and I think he hears, and he's got a great ear. We have a house in Italy, and one of Mike's books is about our experiences in Italy, and he has a great ear. So when he speaks Italian, everybody thinks he's Italian, which is a little difficult because he doesn't speak well enough to engage in conversation the way they want to, but he sounds Italian, and so I think he hears these voices in a very particular way.
I had the chance one time to interview E.L. Doctorow, a fantastic writer, and he made the comment in a book called The Creationists, in which he analyzes various stories, famous stories. So one of the things he does in this book, for example, is he rewrites the end of Moby Dick, right?
How's it come out?
Well, not well, but only a writer would have the sort of guts to do that. But he made the statement in the introduction of that book, he said, stories propose life as something of moral consequence. And I thought that was terrific.
That's
stories
fantastic.
Propose that life is something that is morally consequential.
I think art is it puts the randomness of life in an order, of some kind, even if it's, the kind of art that doesn't seem to make logical sense. It formulates life. It's a fascinating thing.
Did you enter the process of this novel hoping to make a point or a series of points, or is it an examination of, this wonderful journey that living is?
I started the novel to write about what was on my mind. I had this great fear, this freezing cold feeling in my chest, and I wanted to examine that.
Of losing Jill.
Of losing Jill,
yeah.
So I wanted to examine that, and then the rest of it sort of had its own impetus.
So when you started writing the novel, and you wrote it in order? Did you write the chapters basically in order? When you started writing it, you didn't know how it was going to end?
No, I didn't.
In fact, you thought you might end at the end when she died. You thought it might end.
Originally, I was going to end it when Annie dies, and it wasn't going to be a book. It was just going to be this thing, maybe a short story or a novella or something. I didn't know what it was going to be. I just knew I wanted to write it, and I see this wonderful therapist, and I mentioned that to her. That I think I'm done now. Annie has died, and I examined that, and I think I'm done. She said, "Oh no, we need Herbie around. Keep writing Herbie, because Herbie was freeing things in me. Herbie is a great inspiration to me. I aspire to Herbie. So we kept Herbie around for a while."
Have you found that your understanding, your response to the book is at all surprising in that it might be different than Mike's or different from the way other people read? I mean, that's the great thing about novels. We can all read the same book and have a different take or take different things from it, have different things be more important than others. Are you finding that at least the two of you are simpatico about the book or not?
I think we are. I mean, I think we're so tuned into each other after 40 years together. I think our tastes are very similar, and I think that he fell in love with these characters, and so did I, big time. So I don't think that was much of a surprise. I don't know if he told you the story about our daughter, though. That was a big surprise to both of us. Did he tell you that story?
No, tell us that.
Well, she called us after the novel was published, and she hadn't read it. And she said, now I've read the novel. She said, I want to meet with you. I want to meet with you on neutral ground. I don't want to meet with you at home. And we thought, what's going on? And she said, a coffee shop on the corner. And we thought, oh boy, something. And she said, I want to do it a certain hour of the day. And we thought something is terrible. She broke up with her boyfriend. She has a health issue. And she came into the restaurant very, very wound up and emotional and held together, and said, I read the novel, and I don't think that you considered me when you wrote it, to her dad. And it was really tough. It was a tough day.
And, I agreed with her. I don't, and I didn't portray her, and it was not that she felt I had portrayed her in some false way. It was the way she thought I had portrayed her parents. And I can say it's fiction 1,000 times, but nobody believes that, although it is fiction.
So she didn't like Herbie?
She felt that, no,
Annie?
it wasn't that she didn't like him. She felt that I was too transparent, that I was exposing myself and Jill. And she had a problem with that. And
it's interesting because he's written 3 memoirs, where he really tells very personal stories.
True. Yeah. Right.
But I think with the sort of mask of fiction, he felt like he could be truer,
Yeah,
and she felt betrayed by that.
She felt exposed.
Exposed, yeah.
And I thought
it had nothing to do with the way the daughter in this book is.
No.
The daughter
is
affianced to a much older man, and the relationship between this older guy
nothing
and
to
Herbie,
do with
very
my daughter's life.
Yeah.
My daughter's never had a relationship with an older man. No, and nothing about Candy's character is from Allison. And very different people, completely different people.
Is she in the family business? Is she an actress?
She's a chef. Yeah, a very wonderful
She was an
caterer and
actress
chef.
for a while, but she really loves to cook, and she went back to school and got her chef's license.
But what I realized is either you can consider people or be a writer. I don't think you can do both. I had a mantra when I was writing the book, and every day before I sat down in front of the computer, I said, I'm going to write this book and as if no one will ever read it. I think it's the only way you can write. Because if you say, oh, what'll he think of this, or you're dead. You can't go forward.
I think it's fascinating that even though you've written memoirs about very difficult times in your life and also very great times, one of them's about cooking and your love of food in Italy, but you can be truer in fiction.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people would say that a lot of his factual stuff is a little fictionalized.
Well, that's just because my memory is shot.
Yeah.
I have no idea.
There's a thin
actually
line.
happened.
There's a thin line.
But it would have been
between
nice if it went this way.
Well, but of course, the first rule of writing is write what you know.
Yeah.
And you know acting, and you know families, and you know a great love with your wife, and that's what this book is about. I was very taken with the stuff about acting. Herbie serves as they both mentioned, a mentor to this young actor, Olive, and your Herbie's coaching of her through her audition, and the advice that you give. Did you guys both have mentors when you were young actors? Did you mentor each other? Obviously, you were starting in the business kind of at the same time. You've been together
we
a long
both
time.
had people that we still talk about that gave us incredible, help along the way. But we didn't start helping each other until last couple of years. I've started to really ask Mike.
We laid off each other's
I've
work.
asked Mike's.
I let her do her work. She lets me
for
do
Mike's
my work.
advice. Probably it's easier to ask for his advice now and help because he's a little farther away from it, and I feel comfortable about that. But we had mentors
early on,
Yeah.
especially.
Because there's I wrote it down. Herbie, I keep saying you because I mean it's really difficult for me to separate Herbie from you. But Herbie is talking to Olive about this audition, and he says to her, "You have to be able to not seem to be pretending when you're acting." And I thought that was fascinating.
That's the truth. You know, if you look at a bad actor, they're pretending to be something, and you go, this is not a real person. This is an actor pretending to be somebody. That's bad acting. Yeah. So
you see a lot of that in reality television.
Yeah.
Everybody pretending to be real.
Yeah. And not pulling it off at all. Yeah.
Well, we have a little time for some questions. I was asked to make sure that we leave some time for some questions. And there's someone with the microphone that can pass it around?
Well, we'll repeat the questions. So,
and we'll repeat them too.
Someone with a
So
microphone.
if anybody has a question for Michael Tucker or Jill Eikenberry, speak
Yes.
now. Yes.
Chuck?
What neighborhood did I grow up in? Around the Forest Park area, Gwynn Oak Junction, Forest Park, in that basic neighborhood. We moved there when I was about 10 or 11, and before that we lived off of Reisterstown Road, Primrose Avenue and Reisterstown Road, right around there. Yeah, those two neighborhoods.
Did you go to Forest Park High School?
No, I went to City College.
Uh-huh. Very good. Shout out for City. Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
Did you know Barry Levinson? He was in my year at Forest Park. Barry Levinson.
Did you know Barry Levinson?
I knew him only when I went to audition for Diner, and then Barry's about 4 years older than me, my brother's age. So I didn't know him when I was in Baltimore, but then I got to know him when I did Diner, and then Tin Man also. I was in that too. Yeah.
Yes. Aluminum sales.
I'd like to know if you have finished the house in Tuscany.
If we had finished. Finished is a funny word. We have a house in Italy, and she wanted to know if we finished the house. I don't think we're going to do any more building. We just did a lot to the kitchen because I love to cook, and I was never happy with my range top. I like to cook with big pans, and this was a small range top, and I couldn't kind of do the kind of cooking that I like to do. So now I have this brilliant range top, which is an inline 4 big burners in line like that with space in between each one. So I'm crazy for that. So we did that. We do little things to it.
Clearly, you've read the Italy book. Jill, do you like to cook as well? I mean, Mike's a big cook.
I've always left it to him, but I've started eating a much more of a vegan/vegetarian diet, and so I have to cook for self-defense. I have to, because if we're having a dinner party, he can't do it all for me. He's got to be. So I'm starting to get into a lot of vegetables and how to cook them. And we have a wonderful garden in Italy too. So in the summer, it's fantastic.
Why your clear affection for Italy? How did that come about?
We were in Italy years ago to do this film that Jill was talking about, many years ago. So Allison was 7 and Allison's 40 now, so 33, whatever. And we were enchanted with Italy. And then I had this urge that I wanted to buy a house in the south of France. It was my dream to buy a house in the south of France, somewhere near Saint-Tropez in that area. Very romantic idea. And we were living in California at the time, and Jill said, I don't get it. I love the south of France. I love Europe. I love Italy, but why buy a vacation house 6,000 miles away from where we live, which, she had a point. And then a friend of mine said, why do you want to buy a house in the south of France? And I said, because it's so near Italy. Aha. And then we were on this trip. A friend had a birthday in the south of Italy, and we took a trip from the top of Italy to the bottom. And halfway down through a long story that's in that book, in Living in a Foreign Language, we saw this little tiny 350-year-old stone cottage surrounded by olive trees. And we tumbled for it. We just tumbled. And it's a wonderful place.
I do want to ask you, Jill, you are a 2-time survivor of breast cancer now, and you've done a lot of work on behalf of folks and scientists and researchers who are trying to find a cure. Talk a little bit about that work and where things stand and how you're feeling about it.
Mike and I have been talking about our breast cancer experience for about 20 years. before the recurrence, long before it. I made a documentary 3 years after my diagnosis that went on a national primetime on NBC about surviving breast cancer, because in those days, I was diagnosed in 1986. Nobody was talking about surviving. You know, it was a death sentence as far as anybody knew. So we interviewed a whole bunch of people that have survived it, and it was on NBC, and that was really gratifying. And ever since then, we've done a lot of talking about it. And now the recurrence was interesting. It was exactly the same spot and tiny, and I didn't have to have chemo or radiation. But the perspective that it gave me, this was in 2009, was really interesting because things have changed so much in terms of treatment of breast cancer, and it's out of the closet. Everybody's talking about it. It's not a mystery anymore. And the treatment and the whole experience was actually a piece of cake compared to the first one, but it was still a recurrence, which is terrifying and totally unexpected. But I'm sort of now we're talking from that perspective when we go and talk to people, and it's really wonderful to talk to people because everybody, no matter how good the treatment is, feels alone, and you know, I get a lot from hearing other people's stories. We both do, so we still find that work to be quite rewarding.
How many cancer survivors in the audience today? Terrific. Congratulations. That's great. Bravo. That's great. Got a little more time left. Any other questions from our friends here? Yes.
Yes, I want to know if this is going to be an audio book, and if it is, will you do it?
I don't
The question
know.
is, will it be an audio book, and if so, will Michael
Yeah,
do it?
if it is, I'll read it for sure. I don't know. I'm not sure if it's successful enough yet to be made into an audiobook. There's a certain formula that they use. So we'll see. If you all buy books, maybe it'll be made into...
If you were casting this movie as a movie, and you couldn't cast yourself or
No,
Jill,
I wouldn't cast myself.
who would you cast? And then I'll ask you the same question.
Yeah. What's his name? Bridges, I think would be great. Jeff Bridges.
Jeff Bridges?
Yeah. I would go for him, for Herbie. Herbie is not me. I've never picked up a girl in a bar. You know, Herbie has a thing with women that is quite amazing. You know, that's not me. This is, yeah. But I think somebody like him. He has. I love his acting. But there's a lot of people who could play.
How about Annie? Who would you like to see play Annie, Jill?
How about Diane Lane?
That would work.
Yeah, that's good. Or me. I'm available.
Girls got to work. Let's. All right. Well, Jed Dietz from the Maryland Producers Club is right here, so I'm sure when we're finished, Jed, you got one of those contracts in your
I think it would make a nice movie, actually.
Yeah, I do too. I think it'd be a great movie. And there was another question over here, and I'm sorry, I've lost who it was. Oh, maybe not. Okay. Well, Michael Tucker, Jill Eikenberry, the book is After Annie. It is a terrific read. You will enjoy it, and they will be right over there signing and talking to you about this terrific book. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, Tom.
Appreciate it.
Thank you for coming.
A lot of fun. Thank you.